Welcome everybody to another section, the third actually, in our series of licensing conversations, or as we call it, our licensing support group. It's grown tremendously over the last couple of months. We have been excited to invite and bring more and more people into the leadership fold here. And so happy to, again, keep this conversation going. Today, we're going to be led by one of our end user supporters, Steve Goodwin, who works for Grable. And so I'm going to turn it over to him to get us started. Again, welcome everybody to what will be the third series. Steve, take it away.
Thank you, Bobby, and welcome everybody. You got a good group of people here to talk more licensing. I'm sure you're all thrilled about that. So without further ado, let's get into the slides. I thought I'd go with a little bit of a theme this time, so hopefully everyone's a Stranger Things fan, because that's what you're going to see.
Nice, I love it. And Steve, real quickly,
apt.
Just remind everybody, if you have a question, we've got people checking the chat, so drop your questions in the chat or the Q&A. We'll be paying attention and trying to answer as many of those as we can in the moment. So yeah, now I'm really excited to see what Steve's got planned for us, what kind of Gorgon level, excitement we're going to be running from today. So again, back to you, Steve.
Yeah, I should have taken it a bit further and made it, some connection between Vecna and licensing or something, but I didn't go that far. But I did put the chapter 3 in, so I thought I'd get a little bit of a fun thing in there anyway. Well, welcome everybody. Usual crowd here, so you'll see some familiar faces on the screen right there. We'll be jumping in and out as we go through this. I think Ian actually has quite a few things he wants to talk to you about, so that'll be really good when we get there and really informative. Agenda for today, we're going to do a quick recap on where we find ourselves today, and then I'm going to pass it over to, I think, Alex for the update since the last webinar we had. There's a lot in there as well around Ian's slides, so Alex and Ian will probably share that. Dataverse capacity, I think that was Alex too. A little bit of background noise there.
Yeah, if anybody could mute if you're not speaking, that'd be great.
Thanks, Bobby. Licensing for Copilot and AI functions. I think Mo's going to take that one. Security duplication feature will probably be Alex as well, because he's just so knowledgeable on everything. And then lastly, we had a question from, I think it was the last webinar or in between, about usage-driven optimization. I thought it might be a nice little discussion point to just throw that out there and have people just riff on it and provide their thoughts and input. Okay, so recap. I won't go over this in full detail, but I think we're all very aware of what's happening and when it's happening. January 15th is the effective date for when this rolls out. There is a timeline that has been put out there, so prep work begins, and you'll start to see these as clients, as and when your contract anniversary or renewal dates occur, and then this timeline will take effect. So just bear that in mind. T30 is really where you're going to start to see things happen. T-30, I should say, is where you'll start to see things appear in D365, and your end users may start asking questions as to what's going on if they are not aware. The customer enrollments for this will be T0, of course, and then after, I think it's 15-day grace period, you'll start to see that enforcement really take effect. What is impacted? I think, again, we all know this stuff. So production environments, including multi-tenant production environments, active users of D365, B2B guests. What is not impacted? Obviously, non-production environments, sysadmins. Service accounts is an interesting one. So will be affected if you give it a functional role. So that's something to really bear in mind. External users who have external roles will not be affected right now. And device users, which I know is Tad's area of expertise, not affected right now, but certainly let's highlight for now. It will change over time. Other noteworthy things in there, all custom objects are going to require a team member license, which is the base entry point now for everything. All of our users will require a license of some kind, and the lowest one will be team member. Multiplexing is still something to be wary of. So a lot of us have been thinking about clever ways to utilize maybe Power Automate to do some of these things. Still got to be very conscious of those multiplexing rules and staying within the boundaries of that. And finally, as we've been told numerous times, PPAC is the source of truth for licensing. I'm sure we'll touch a little bit on that with Ian when he talks about his pieces, but that's where we should be going now, and that is what Microsoft wants us to use as the go-forward position. Included in here is a couple of links. I'm now conscious that we don't send these slides out, so we'll get these links out there, or maybe Bobby can add them into the chat just so people can access those if you haven't seen the previous parts that we went through. Well, let's move on to updates since last webinar. Alex, I think you're up with this one, my friend.
Yeah, and Mo and Ian, feel free, because some of this is stuff that we've done, and Andre as well, to jump in. Microsoft, kind of one of the big things, right, has been obviously there's been a lot of changes, right, from the licensing perspective, and the question has always kind of been, when is Microsoft going to go pencils down, right, or stop making large changes? And I think we're getting to that point. There are still, the reason I put in for the most part is that we're still seeing some slight object to license changes, right? And really those are more bug fixes, in my opinion, right, than actual, massive changes, but it's still impacting people. But you should see the number of overall changes, right, slowing down from a license perspective. So I think that's one of the big things from there. Microsoft's still adding a lot of new reporting functionality, both in PPAC, which obviously rolls over. You'll see it in LCS as well, and I think Ian can obviously add some more flavor to that. But you'll start to see some more reporting functionality in those systems. And then Andre also and I both did a blog post on some of the new functionality within F&O, right, that you're starting to see. So we'll actually touch on that here in just a little bit. We want to give a huge shout out to Andre for the licensing advent calendar. That's a huge undertaking to be coming up with new topics every day to write about. So want to give a huge shout out to that, because that's a wealth of knowledge there. We are starting to see some of the in-app notifications start to go out, right? So if you are part of that, if you're renewing after January 15th, of 2026, or if your renewal date with Microsoft is after that date, right, you could potentially be in that 45-day window of the the actual license validation for that. So you might start to see that soft notification there. And then one of the big things that actually happened December 1st, right before the convergence that Mo and I and Saurabh did a session on, is the Dataverse capacity licensing, and we have a big section on that. I put a screenshot of what this looks like now. The long story short of that, or the high level, is that your Dataverse and your operations database are no longer separate. So when you look at they're now a combined resource. So when you look at like the licensing guide, right, you're going to see Dataverse or operations database, right? And they're combining that capacity, right? So you no longer have two separate instances that you kind of have to manage separately, right? It's, at the end of the day, it's all Dataverse. So it's a great move in my opinion, from Microsoft, and you're getting a bump on the entitlement that you get from a storage capacity perspective. But we'll go into that in a little bit more detail here. But those are kind of the high level updates that we've had since the last webinar.
Great.
I'd like
Alex,
to ask,
one more.
yeah, no, one quick thing, that there was also an update from Saurabh that with Copilot licenses, when you buy them, you're going to get additional credit for Copilot credit, actually. That's in addition to what we already discussed about the additional capacity we get. So they're not a lot, but few good news before Christmas.
Yeah, every little bit helps. So, all right, if we can go, Steve, to the next slide. So I'm Ian. I'm from Microsoft, and I like to say I'm licensing users for F&O. I'm the reporting services area PG product manager. So one of the things that we talked about was like those in-product banner notifications. And so I can tell you that it's after December 15th, as we mentioned, customers who have renewals in January, after January 15th, are beginning to see banner notifications. I can tell you thousands of customers are in that pool. They have some of their users that are actively seeing banners. And we've been going through and working with those customers on like, why is the banner showing up? What is causing the banner? I just want to make sure for this group that it is expected, and that we actually then are seeing unlicensed users both properly get the banner, as well as then working through the software updates around that for clarity. Again, that learn more link on the left as well to have more detail there. Let's go to the next slide though. So what's causing the banner, and I like to have a Christmas theme here, is I like to call this our Christmas tree chart. And it is color coded by priority. So there's a red, a yellow, a green, and a blue. For this group, green might probably be the most interesting because you can save money, and we actually do see customers saving a significant amount of money when they're over licensed. But what's key is the first red Christmas color on this chart. It's both in PPAC and in LCS, and that's our unlicensed users. What I want to call out from Microsoft is that we have gone through and driven the reporting refresh times down to 4 to 12 hours. We continue to go through and have line of sight to get that to be faster. I want sub hour, I want sub 5 minutes, but we're there in terms of updates that are happening more rapidly and more continuously. So you're going to see as being pencils down on functionality. If I get you to 1 hour, that's not a massive feature, but if I get you to 30 minutes or 5 minutes, again, we're making improvements as we go through and look at the updates that are coming through on that. And that would be something that I would say that we're actively still pursuing, and that my target is to go through and make it so that I don't have to have a time there. It's just real time on that front. Well, if we go to the next slide, I really want to talk about the number one red area here for everyone's just awareness, and that is unlicensed users. So that's that red chart at the top. And what that means is that those are users who are assigned security roles that require a license, but they don't have a license assigned in M365 Admin Center. When you go into the reporting, get PPAC or LCS, click on View Details. You'll see in the lower left, if I look at Ethan down there, Ethan's required license is an operations activity. I see he's missing a license of an operations activity. If you click on Ethan and you go through and click on Manage M365 Admin Center, it brings you up to Ethan, and you click a box that says, hey, go through and assign them an activity license. In this case, you can see on the screenshot that 40 out of 100 licenses are available. Ethan then will go through and be licensed, and then at that point, then 4 hours later through the system, they're able to go through and make sure that they are licensed and that they are not showing up with that banner. That banner will go away. We have a TTL of sub 1 hour, but we want to go through it and make it so that, again, users will see the banner at that post-January 15th date and renewal date 15 days after, it's 15 days after your renewal. They will be unable to access the system if they do not have a license assigned. So that unlicensed user count that you have here, our unlicensed user count, you want to get that to go through and then drive that to 0 so that you're not going to go through and have users that A, are seeing the banner, or B, are impacted at a future date when validation's turned on there. So if we go to the next slide then, this is the part that I like to say that is the sequel that's coming. That's why it's the second. Is that users who are assigned security roles in M365 Admin Center that do not meet the license requirements. So you can see that I have Paula Planner down there. She required licenses are finance and project operations. Again, if we click into that, it'll tell us that she needs a finance base and a project operations attached, but she just has a finance license assigned. You go through and rectify that again by adding that attached license for operations there, and that will make them be a fully licensed user that meets the license requirements. But again, from a banner standpoint and from a validation standpoint, under licensed are not being technically validated on the 15th. That's going to be on a subsequent update that we can share in January for a timeline there. But what I would tell you again is that you can fully go through and make sure that your users are both licensed appropriately and then assigned licenses in M365 for base and attached licenses. And you'll see that here for your under licensed users. Again, this is the second. So first focus on your totally unlicensed users, then focus on your under licensed users. If we go to the next slide, this is where I would tell you that I've been surprised at the number of customers in the last week have been like, wait a second, we've assigned 5 licenses or 3 licenses or 2 base licenses and attached license covers that. Or hey, they're assigned a full license, but they only need a team member license. Over licensed users is how we're going through and letting you then see, hey, like if I look at Claude down here, he requires a finance license and he's been given an attached license that he no longer needs to commerce. He just requires finance. Let's remove that commerce attached license from Claude or CAD. And that means that they don't have excessive assigned licenses. And so I had a customer on Tuesday get really excited because they had several hundred over-licensed users. On Wednesday, yesterday, they went through and said, hey, my gosh, our over-licensed users are 0. But now we have this question of like, what do we do with all these spare licenses? And I was like, it's your Christmas present to go into your budget planning cycle for your renewal. That's February 1st about what you need and don't need. And so again, like this is an opportunity for you to make sure that you don't have licenses that are sitting there that aren't needed and that are assigned. And so go through and leverage this from the standpoint of, again, a cost optimization footprint that really, like I said, we've seen customers really drive that, like, hey, we care about our over-licensed users for cost savings. Great, but if you don't want to see banners, you don't want to be impacted from people unable to access the system, focus on unlicensed first, under-licensed are coming. This is the Christmas present here of you can save money and substantial amounts of money if they're over-licensed, and then looking at that as well. Let's go to the next slide then, and this is the fourth one that we talked about, is really users without a license requirement. So if you're a sysadmin or there are excluded security roles, again, we'll put these links in the chat in terms of roles or service accounts and that are there. You can go through and see those reflected in the reporting to go through and then see if the users do not require a license and what that configuration is in the system that would go through and then render that. It's been interesting to see for some customers that they go through and say, wow, we have bought X number of licenses, call it 15 licenses, and all of our users have sysadmin. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I also saw a call the customer that had 2,200 system admin users, but they had 2,200 system admin users, and they said, oh, we probably shouldn't do that way because that means everyone can override POs and everything else, and help them drive to then say, hey, let's go through and remove system admins where we need them appropriately, or other roles that would be there to go through and then understand how they've configured the system, again, inadvertently or creatively, to then go through and then look at it and say, hey, do we really think that would be triggering? As well as if you have just sandbox environments, you haven't gone live yet, you'll see your sandbox users here because there is no license requirement in terms of assigned licenses in sandbox environments. So that reporting again there is where you'll see it before you go live, your users there and your counts, and then the configuration of the system about what would be required moving forward. I think then the last slide, the next slide then here, there's a CSV export. I like to say that you can see a detailed report that shows you your security role, your required license, your assigned licenses. It's a CSV format. And you're going to say, but can't we get it to be more creative and more interesting? I'm just going to leave it that it's a textual format. You can take your information to your provider of choice and use that to get recommendations, which I'll highlight in the next slide. But this is the point I would say, is that you can take this, and if you feel like going to Copilot or Perplexity or your own local LLM model, you can go through and then look at taking that textually about what would be there. But you can also export this and then see all your environments, do your filtering, do your pivot charts, do your charting over time, or even import this into other platforms, Power BI and others. We've seen several customers build APIs just to call into this, to pull out every day, and then be able to feed that into their other end systems, again, to see that as well. But this is probably the next slide, is probably the biggest Christmas present I can give to everyone here, is there's a button called Summarize. And I know it's called Summarize, and it's unclear why. It's called Copy to Clipboard, and it takes everything you saw on the screens here about who's assigned what licenses, what the counts are, and it gives you a textual format. Again, I'm going to just go through and just not be coy here, but like take this to your provider of choice and then say, help me understand what to do with my licenses. Help me go through and then see if I have licenses I'm not using or licenses I do need to assign. And you can take that to Copilot, to, again, your own local hosted LLMs, and you can take that input into those to go through and then do analysis and then do tooling there. Just as a preview, we're working on features to go through and make sure that we can surface better recommendations around what the system's providing. But this is a first step that we took back late in the summer, just to go through and tell you, hey, it's exportable into your clipboard, and go through and use that accordingly, is what I would say there. And expect more to come on that feature into the new year. So with that, I'm going to hand, I think, it back to Alex then. But that's the key point that I just want to share around unlicensed users is the main focus that you want to drive to get that to 0, so that your users aren't seeing banners, they aren't being impacted as we go into next year. Thanks.
That's super useful. Thank you, Ian.
Yeah.
Alex, back to you for Dataverse Capacity.
For sure. One last key point on that Summarize button, there's no notification or anything, but if you click on the button, it does copy to clipboard. And it's hugely impactful. So 100% would recommend using that. There was a question or a couple in the chat about if a user is under provisioned and you go in and assign a license, how quickly does that get applied? My understanding, I guess, was that it gets applied in the next sign-in. Andre said that there is a delay a little bit. Ian, do you want to just weigh in on what that would look like, what that process would look like?
So two things on the front. If I go through and I assign a user a license, M365 Admin Center says it's within the hour. So we mark the record as dirty within 60 seconds, meaning that the license actually is in the system, but there's a total time to live of 1 hour from Admin 365 to cascade through. And then there's that 4-hour window that then say, hey, do we actually go through and make sure that banners aren't showing, that the system is going to go through and calculate that they have an assigned license and they're not subtracted from the totals that I was showing you there. But it should be that we've seen from that TTL on admin@microsoft.com, that 1 hour window is averaging right now about 18 minutes. So 18 minutes to be there, but like, again, it can be faster. We've seen some customers, it'd be 5 minutes, 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 18 minutes, but it's in that 1 hour window that would go through and be there for an assigned license. You'll see it if you click into it in your real time as well. We're trying to accelerate that all toward, minutes and seconds, not an hour.
Perfect. Yeah, I just wanted to get the, how often, or, how quickly that actually happened, right? If you have somebody that needs to get logged in,
and if someone after January 15th would be validated, like they can access the system, if you assign a license within 5 minutes, they'll be able to get into the system. The reports will reflect that. You'll see that. At most, it would be that 1 hour, but we'll see that again from the standpoint of, again, 5 minutes to 1 hour max.
Awesome. Thanks for that input, Ian. I just wanted to clear that up. So, like I said, I think one of the big things from that has been, from the last time we chatted, right, to now is, obviously we've been focused on the licensing from a security perspective, right? Because that's obviously the first thing from a validation or enforcement perspective that's happening. But there is the other side of the capacity, right? And this has been one area that's kind of I don't want to say it's kind of been shunned or put to the back burner, right, as we focused on the security side. But now, right, obviously this is something that we are also going to have as part of the, enforcement or the validation, right, to make sure that from a capacity perspective, the amount of storage that a F&O client is using, right, is applicable and their license for that. So previously, like I mentioned, right, you kind of had two separate buckets, right? You had your Dataverse and you had an operations Dataverse bucket that you could, you had to manage. And now what you'll start to see is that you'll have those being combined, right? And so you won't have to worry about as much of how much Dataverse capacity do I have, how much operations capacity, right? It's just all going to look like Dataverse at the end of the day. So that'll be combined. And so there's a Microsoft blog here that kind of explains what that looks like. So that's the first part to this. And then the second part is that each entitlement within Microsoft, so each license that you're assigning to the user, right, has now got a bump, right, from the amount of data that user has, at least at the higher tier levels, right? Your commerce, finance, project operations, supply chain, you're all going to see that bump from a per user perspective, and you'll see even a bigger bump for those premium licenses, right? So there's obviously going to be a push to get people to look at those premium licenses. And the interesting part that I found was that there may be cases where it may be more cost effective, right, for users to go from a finance to a finance premium than to buy the Dataverse capacity, right, at the $40 per USD gigabyte, right? So definitely look out for those types of scenarios as well as we go through this. And I think, Steve, do we have a slide on the changes? Perfect. So what you'll see in the red here, this is a slide that Saurabh from Microsoft came up with for the session that Mo, him, and myself did last week at Convergence. And it really kind of shows what the difference, right, is going to be, right? So you'll notice that you don't really have, the operations entries here, right, are all redlined out, right, because those no longer exist in this capacity, right? It's all going to roll up to the Dataverse. But you can see that you have a fairly big jump here, right, from where you were previously, right, with your database and file, right, to now from a a licensing capacity here. And so it's something really to keep in mind, right, as you're going through and assigning your licensing, right, that it's not just all about security. I know that's what we're focused on right now, but there is a capacity component to this as well that we need to worry about. So I wanted to point out that your normal base licenses, right, are going to that 90 and 80 gigabyte per tenant. And then you can see that your premium are actually jumping up to 125 and 110, right? So you do get that additional capacity. And if you do the math on that, right, between your 210 to 300, that $90 increase, right, that's going to give you a much better return, right, than trying to buy $40 a gigabyte for the Dataverse capacity, right? So obviously there's a push there as well. So I'll let Ian or Mo, anybody that would like to weigh in here as well on anything that they would like to call out, but that's kind of from a high level, right, one of the biggest changes that we're seeing.
Yeah, absolutely. And
Yeah.
I think this is increasingly important because Microsoft now announced that for all new implementation in Q1 2026, they have to use PPAC instead of LCS. So if you want to spin up all these development environments and potentially USEs for a tier 2 environment, you do need that capacity. And we know how expensive it is. It's $40 per gigabyte per month. And getting a bump like this, I think for some instances are about 20x what you get as opposed to what it was before. So that's a significantly good need for a lot of. I have seen a couple of customers, out of 20 that are not over capacity. So that's really good news, and that just paves the way for all clients to be compliant in terms of database capacity. The rumor is starting 2027, all existing customers should be also on PPAC. So you definitely take this as a good news, and I think we invite all customers to start looking into PPAC much more seriously than before.
Yeah, I would just say one thing on this point. Trust me, we wrestled for months and years on the numbers. I will tell you that your feedback, both as users and as customers, on is this the right number or is this the wrong number, is definitely been helpful. So keep the feedback coming there, because if I go from 10 to 90, why didn't it go to 100 or 95 or 96 or 97? Trust me, there were lots of internal debates. There's lots of internal proof points on what that looks like. I'll tell you, device is probably the silent sleeper of this slide, that you went from 600 megs to 2 gigabytes. I know some customers with devices that are very happy about their storage footprint now, given the price points that devices are at. So just it's goodness. I did have some customers come back and ask for refunds on purchase capacity because he's increased. I can't speak to that. All I can say is, moving forward, use this as you need to, and you have more space. It's more beneficial for you to go through and be able to leverage that and use that. And I had another customer complain, yeah, but we're only using like 6%. What are we supposed to do with this extra 94% that we have? And I said, use it efficiently. Use your license model to optimize for effectively. You're not using 94% of the system. Figure out what you need, grow it accordingly, move other platforms, consolidate. Like, it's goodness from that standpoint. So we're not telling you have to use it. We're telling you have the benefit to use it, and that you'll grow, and that should go through and have headroom as you need to and as you want to use that as a customer. So, and be effective and efficient as you go through and look at these. Don't expect that this is going to become something that's going to happen. 20x increases. There was lots of let's put it this way, arm wrestling and negotiating and on that. And so I would expect minor adjustments as we look into the next year or two.
Great. Thank you, guys. Okay, Mo, moving on to Copilot and AI.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. So this was a question we were getting, I think, almost in every licensing session. And Alex and myself, Andre, I'm pretty sure you ran into this problem where they were saying this question where users were asking, okay, I see all these Copilot icons, popping up that can write, summaries at many forms, vendor invoices. Do we need to buy licenses, and are we charged hidden fees? One customer told me, where am I paying for it? I'm pretty sure I'm paying for it, but I don't know where. I said, no, you're not paying for this. So basically, if you are in D365 and you have a valid license, all those summaries that you're getting, embedded forms that you can get, AI parts that you can embed in some form, as well as the right-hand sidebar where you see the Copilot icon, you click on it, you ask any question, those are already included in your license. Now, if you go ahead and customize that as Copilot sidebar and call any ERP MCP, you basically want to make it smarter. and call a Copilot agent that is developed using Copilot Studio, you definitely need to get Copilot credit to be able to call that agent. So you don't need to, your user within Dynamics, inside Dynamics, does not need to have an extra license per user license, but you do have to have the credits if you want to call those Copilot agents that are developed by yourself, using Copilot Studio. And obviously, if you're developing any Copilot Studio, you do have to have the licenses, and there's a free license that you have to get, but there are also other licensing that we're not going to get into that. But yeah, if that Copilot agent is developed, all you need to consume it, if you're within D365, is that you have to have credits purchased beforehand, and there are 3 plans that you can buy Copilot credits. We're not going to go too deep into that, but yeah, you do have to have those credits if you want to customize that sidebar Copilot agent. Now, obviously, if you want to call this, you use Copilot across any other of your M365 within Teams, in Word, Excel, you do have to have a license that allows you to actually M365 Copilot license to be able to interact with that. So that's not, if you're within Dynamics, you don't need anything, but if you're outside, obviously, and you want to use Copilot functionality for the data that in D365, you do have to have that M365 Copilot license. We have also included a link here that's a Copilot licensing guide, actually, so where you could look into all the what are the different schemes where you can buy these Copilot credits. So if you'd like to know more about that licensing aspect of Copilot, you could refer to that link.
Excellent. Anything to add? Anybody else before we move on? Nope. Mo covered it well. Thank you, Mo. Okay, security duplication feature. Alex, this may be one for you, but Ian's celebrating already, so he may jump in as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll let Andre had a great blog post on this as well, but I know that Ian and his team, the team at Microsoft, really worked hard on this. This is a great feature. If you are going in and the use case here, right, is you have a role, right, whatever role in the system, duty or privilege as well, that you would like to take from a certain license level and move it down, right? So if you take the accountant role, I think is the example that I used in this case, right? And I said, hey, I want to actually take this down to an operations activity license, right? So instead of taking a finance license, it moves it down. You can go in, and when you go to that duplicate option in your security configuration window now, you'll notice that there's a new, before you could just put in the name of, hey, here's what I wanted to duplicate. Now you'll actually have a drop down that says, hey, what license SKU would you like this to actually be at? And you can select which one you would like from that case. And then what will happen is whatever you select, the system will go through and look at the duties at the role level, right? It's going to look at the duties and privileges and say which of these are actually bumping this up to that would be above the license that you select, and it will remove them. So in this case, you can see there were 62 references for the accountant role, right? And references in this case would be duties or privileges that were assigned to the accountant role that actually were bumped it up to that finance license. And so when we remove those, right, it will actually bump it down. And so that you'll see that you can also then download a report. That report will then be generated to basically show here's what we removed, right, from the parent role that you duplicated, right, so that you have the history of that in that case. And so that is a great option. I actually tested this, and once you let everything sync, the new AM accountant role that I created at that operations activity level was actually reporting in PPAC as operations activity, right? So that absolutely came through. There was a couple key points. One is that at the duty level, and Andre and I actually went back and forth on this. I actually tested this again at the duty level, and it worked, but there was no report that was generated to let you know, like, hey, this is what we removed from it. And then at the privilege level, right, you're still just duplicating. There's no option, I guess, that I saw in my version. And again, that could potentially, I don't know if I did it on one of the first releases, 10.45, so this could be could have been updated, but there was no option to lower at the privilege level as well. So there's a couple key points, I guess, from that perspective. But from the role perspective, I tested this on a couple different roles of trying to take it from, all the way from a premium down to a team member, and it absolutely will do that. But just keep in mind that it's really just removing the duties and privileges, right, that are bumping this up from that perspective. But if you have a role and you want to say, hey, I want this role, but I want it at a different license level, 100% is something that you should look at. Is this the duplication feature from that they offer now?
Yeah, I just want to comment on one thing. So this is a feature that long time requested feature. I think Kevin, you put a question in the chat. I just wanted to call it here. You said it looks like duplicate by license type. The feature request is allow duplication for multiple licenses, so that you can duplicate finance, SCM, and commerce down to, let's say, finance and supply chain, removing commerce. I hear you on that. The question is, in terms of feedback on this, is what should the dropdown look like? Because I have 85 dropdowns. If you want activity plus team member, you want team member, but you want supply chain premium, you want premium, but you want commerce base, or you want like, that's the question that we're looking at here, is around. I'd love take it to your vibe coders, or take it to like a screen mockup, or what image you think it would look like, because like, even if it's just commerce, finance, and supply chain, we have HR, we have, like, it becomes a very long drop down. And our internal testing went through and said, how do we limit to just one license type? Maybe there is a checkbox that would say have multiple, or do that via a configuration like something like a Power Automate, Power FX formula that you could specify. I don't want to build Excel into the dialogue, but like, it gets to some real edge cases out there. But definitely keep the feedback coming on that front. And then on the duty as well, Alex, that you mentioned, yes, there's work that's going to be coming on that'll be coming next year. It was more important to get this out sooner rather than later, and that's where we also have the reporting that'll be coming on duty as well there in terms of that Excel output. But I'll also then share in the chat some of the articles that are going live on this as well. And Andre, your article was great on this as well. So more to come here, but keep the feedback coming. And should the dropdown have the 12 items it has now, or should it have 85 items and an endless scroll or formula? I'm open to feedback there as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Ian, for the input. Steve, back to you.
Thank you, guys. Andre, anything you want to add here? I know you've done quite a bit of work in here as well.
I think on the security duplication feature, Alex just provided his thoughts and mentioned everything he had seen and I have seen. So he had a great summary on this one. So I don't have anything in addition on this topic itself. Thank you.
Sweet. Okay. Thank you all. Okay. So I put this in as a little bit of a question for everyone to ponder. So I believe this was on our last webinar. If not, it was certainly circulated afterwards, but it was a question around how can we remove excess roles duties based on usage? The scenario is we have a user with multiple roles. After 1 month of usage, we want to check what the user is not using so we can slim down the security configuration. Question I have for everybody is, how would you do it? Who wants to go first? Ian, do you want to tackle it?
I will leave this to what the fastpath tooling can do, and that we've also seen from some industrious customers on this. Is it easy today? No, and I fully appreciate that. So yeah. We have work to do to close this gap.
So I'll take not even a sales approach. I'll take the native approach, right, of how you would set this up. Because I am very passionate about the telemetry functionality that exists within F&O to begin with. I've done sessions on it in the past. I've numerous blog posts on it. I think it's one of the underutilized from an admin or configuration or just maintenance perspective. It's one of the more underutilized features in F&O. If you look at like the BC side of the house and look at all the really cool stuff that they have, and then you come to the F&O side, you can kind of see that disparity. So if you haven't looked into what that functionality can provide, right, not just from tracking what a user does, but also errors and custom reporting and all sorts of really cool stuff, would 100% look at that. So even if you're not worried about the licensing portion, I would look into that. But the way that you would have to go about If you were trying to do this natively without some tool to help match this up, the two big parts to this that you actually would have to generate is a user access report, right? That's something that doesn't exist currently within F&O, right? So if a user, it's very easy if a user has one role, right, to generate that. If a user has 10, 20 roles, it's much harder to do. But we need a user access report, right, to be able to say, here's everything that user has is assigned. And then we're going to marry that up or look at the usage data that we're getting from the telemetry functionality, right, and be able to see where that cross section is. And so that is really the key part to this, as far as you can do it manually. There are 100% customers that have that I know of that are doing this, and you can absolutely use Power Automate and other things to help pull this data in and be able to do this. There's obviously also tools that I've helped develop, right, to if you want a more automated solution for this. And there still are some edge case, not even edge case, but there are some gaps, I guess, just with the native telemetry, right? That's only looking at form loads, right? So it's not going to capture things like menu item outputs or actions, data into usage, things like that. And so, you do have to go, to get a true 100% clear picture, you do have to add some custom coding around some of this, but can you get much closer using out of the box telemetry and, from a usage perspective? Yes. So I'm curious on what everybody else has, but that's kind of my high level overview of how you would go about this, trying to get to this optimization piece.
Yeah, and exactly, Alex. What we recommend to all customers is that activate that telemetry data. It doesn't cost you anything. To get data into App Insight, it costs you a few dollars per month. So it's really nothing. And it doesn't have the most interesting part about it is that it doesn't have any performance impact on your D365 the way it's designed. So it's really a nice feature. And when we want to do usage data analysis, you need a good amount of data there to be able to do it. So if you activate it today, you have to at least wait for probably a couple of months before you can have meaningful amount of data to say, hey, people can take vacation. So you can say, oh, okay, this guy is never using the system. Well, he was on vacation or maternity leave or whatever. But yeah, so go in. I invite everyone, go in, activate it. It takes maximum half an hour. It's pretty simple. It not only helps you with usage data, but it also helps you with many other things. If in the future you want to do logging of other events, there are many other use cases, but yeah, it's an important one at this one. And yeah, so someone also told me that they're using the database logging feature inside D365. I definitely, if you really want to do it for a very short period of time, it's not be a bad idea, but doing it for highly transacting records table is extremely not advised, just because it moves the system down, and you really don't want that. It has to be used with a lot of caution. So be careful about that. If you want to do it for a short period of time, maybe it's not a big deal, but the performance impact there is huge.
Yeah, would 100% recommend App Insights and the telemetry over the database log
Exactly.
to be able to do this.
Yeah, just from a end user perspective, we are a FastPath, the linear customer, and use the FastPath tool. Get that right, Alex. But we've used it for the telemetry. So we've got App Insights feeding the FastPath tool. We can see clearly what people are touching, and it has been very useful to us to identify more from a privilege of least privilege perspective for us as to how do we drive this down to you only access what you need. So that's the way we've used it, but it's certainly provided that level of granularity that is required to get to that level. And that's what we've been doing for quite some time now. I had a question for Ian. Yeah. Is it on the roadmap to provide anything like this within the application itself? And if so, is there going to be a Copilot element to it to make suggestions?
So what I would say is one of the key foundation platforms is around monitoring and telemetry. So there are subsystems that are in CE, customer engagement platforms, that F&O just hasn't moved to. And when we adopt those and basically be able to go through and offer those as primitives that can be used by tools like FastPath and other platform features, that gets that robustness and, more importantly, all of the different signals that can come in and marry different data sources that come through. That's what we're really focused on delivering, so that there are multiple entry points and multiple ways of, I want to say, slice, dice, dissect, telemetry, views, and then those things from the interesting thing I'll say here, and I'll just mention the word multiplexing in terms of how we see that and then how that comes through from different platforms. And that's in many ways where, from a Microsoft standpoint, we want to go build that capability to then be able to be leveraged and then go through and then be able to then have that traceability extended and offered from tools like, what FastPath has built and then what others have built on top of that. But that's true line of sight requires us to go through and deliver the platform capabilities that not just App Insights, but beyond App Insights is needed to go through and provide. So that's what would be coming. That will then allow us to then go through, have real-time recommendations, real-time notifications, real-time AI capabilities around monitoring. Like, hey, you know what? You don't need this segregation of duty privilege. Can we go through and do just-in-time access for you and elevate, that prompt or that screen for the next, period of time that would be there based on organizational rules? That's all the platform plumbing that my team has to go through and deliver on, so that we can go through and build on top of that platform that's already, established in other parts of the business, other technology stacks that just haven't caught up yet to where F&O is today. But that's on our roadmap, a journey that we'll be delivering in the next, next year and beyond.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. I'm going to do a quick check. I know there's been a lot of chat in the chat. Any questions outstanding there, or anything that we need to clarify for anybody? Is anyone monitoring that? Bobby, are you taking a look at that by any chance?
I've been monitoring. You guys are doing a great job keeping up. I will share out. I've shared them out before, but what I've been doing is taking these transcripts and running them through Copilot to summarize them and just return those to the group. So anybody missing, because those questions roll by fast. So
Yes.
that way you can at least catch up with the questions and answers that happened in the chat.
Great stuff. Thank you. Okay. Key takeaways, there's only a couple on here. It's a mirror of what we've talked about so far. It's across all of our webinar series so far. Do not wait. If you can get in there right now and start actioning things, if you're not due to be hit by this until like July, like I am, I'm in that fortunate position. But we started work on this already. We're quite far down our journey already. We're feeling comfortable and confident. That's where we want everyone to be. And hopefully these webinar series are helping people make those judgment calls and get you the early access, the skills, the direction, the help to get you to where that level of comfort is realized. License compliance, as I think Tad called out on our last webinar, it's going to become part of our daily jobs, everybody. Anyone who's a sysadmin in D365 or responsible for D365 for their company, this is now part of your job, and it will be moving forward. So it's a new world. We got to get with it, and it's a big change. Let's all be honest about that, but it's now part of our responsibilities as custodians of D365. Final point from us on here is share your success stories with us. Share your troubles with us too, but we'd love to hear success stories. One of the big things that I've seen, particularly in the Dynamics user group, is if you share something that you've done, someone else benefits from it. And I've been on the receiving end of that. I've also been able to help people with certain things that we've done as a company. But sharing that information across the group with your colleagues, with your peers, can only help others. So let's do more of that. And it's certainly interesting to hear what people are going through, because we're all in different situations, but we all use D365. So good to hear all that stuff. There's a load of resources on here. I think a lot of them have been included in the chat links already, but certainly if there's more, we'll get them out to everybody and share them. But I'm sure a lot of people are already signed up to Andre and Alex and others on LinkedIn or through blogs. There'll be more and more of that to come. Next session, I've put to be decided, because that looming date is upon us. January 15th is coming fast. So we will do something next. I'm not quite sure what that content will be, but certainly from the feedback that is in the chat right now, and Bobby does his magic with Copilot, we will get something together, and we'll certainly have a fourth session. It may be a bit more sobering by that time, and maybe we need to make it a happy hour or something. I don't know, but we'll do something. And in the meantime, any feedback that you all have would be welcome, and we'll include that in whatever that new session looks like. final call out for me, and then I'm going to pass it over to Bobby to do a little bit more on this. DynamicsCon 2026 in Vegas next year, May 12th through 15th. There will likely be, licensing will definitely be discussed, but there will likely be a live representation of this webinar at DynamicsCon. I know that a couple of us on here will be reviewing session submissions and making sure that we get the right feel for that conference, but I have a sneaky feeling that this webinar will, a live version of this webinar will make it into that agenda. So
it's trending towards an entire track.
Oh, yes, it is.
Hey, Steve, I can actually guarantee that there will be content on licensing at DynamicsCon.
Yeah.
There you go. Tad has spoken. Bobby, anything you want to add here?
No, just again, a lot of great feedback outside of the webinar as I've been sending out some of the recaps. If you've got ideas, things that are stuck in your craw, I've been able to uplift those into the team, so they're adding them into the presentation. So we're trying to meet you, like Steve said, where you need to be met. So if you've got things you still don't understand or want us to continue to discuss and talk about in these forums, let us know so we can add them in. Happy to keep it going for as long as it has legs, and it feels like it's got legs. So it's not a sprint, it's a marathon on this one. So like Steve said, it's something you got to plan for and something you have to, as an organization, be prepared to address, as part of your organizational plan going forward.
Agreed. Any last thoughts from our participants? Any last comments? Nope. All good. Well, thank you everybody for attending. Happy holidays to you all, and happy licensing, if that's such a term. But enjoy yourselves, and we'll be back in January for sure.
Definitely. Thanks, everyone. Happy holidays.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Appreciate it.
Bye.